So let me just read through this. I don't need to stop as much, I don't think. The Holy Spirit as a mode of God. The Holy Spirit as a mode of God. Again, right away, Dr. Tuggy is calling the Holy Spirit a mode of God. Those of you who've been following my commentary know that the branch of Christianity known as modalism is actually defined as heretical. Modalism is the idea that God is one being, but yet presents himself as three characters in a play, or persons in a play, people who wear different masks, where there's one actor but three different masks, three modes of expression, three puppets that interact with us, but yet there's only one hand behind the puppet. So we use different analogies, but the idea is that one God, three different aspects or modes or representations or displays or avatars, or fill in the blank. Modern evangelical Christianity, for the most part, rejects modalism as heretical. One God with three masks is a heresy that was dealt with very, very, very early on in Christianity, right up there along with Arianism. And so Dr. Tuggy holds to a form of Christianity that strikes me as sometimes Arianistic, but sometimes modalistic. Oneness Pentecostals hold to a version of Christianity that is highly modalistic. One God who wears three different names or something like that. So let's listen to what Dr. Tuggy has to say about this aspect of the Holy Spirit. This is Dr. Tuggy's quote as found in the Stanford Encyclopedia, his own entry. You ready? Here we go. Some ancient Christians, most 17th through 19th century Unitarians, present-day biblical Unitarians, and some modern subordinationists such as the Jehovah's Witnesses hold the Holy Spirit to be a mode of God, that is, God's power, presence, or action in the world. Again, this is Dr. Tuggy speaking. And remember, a lot of what he says is simply facts that he's using to bolster his own argument. So, the old saying is that everyone can have their own opinion, but no one can have their own facts. So to the degree that he quotes history and fact, I have to agree with that. But when he starts stepping in and supplying his own interpretation of history, that's where I tend to disagree. But so far, he's right on the money. And he recommends see the supplementary document on Unitarianism. He goes on to say, not implying modalism about the Son, this position is harder to refute on New Testament grounds, although mainstream theologians and some subordinationist Unitarians reject it as inconsistent with the New Testament language from which we should infer that the Holy Spirit is a self. And that's a quote from another philosopher by the name of Clarke. And so basically right away what Dr. Tuggy is going to let us know is that if you just look at the biblical data and you compare the way the Bible presents God the Father, the way the Bible presents God the Son, or the man Jesus, you find a lot more explicit verbiage and terminology that helps you come to some practical decisions on the identity of that aspect of these individuals, of who they are, and who is God, how is he put together, who is Jesus, how is he put together, etc., etc. But when it comes to the Holy Spirit, as Dr. Tuggy just referenced here, there's a lot of there are a lot of gaps in terminology. It's harder to put your finger on how best to describe the Holy Spirit with a very foundational argument. Other than, you've got verses here, you got verses there, but if you look at the kind of the whole scope of the Bible, kind of back up and zoom out and look at it as a whole, the Holy Spirit is largely invisible. Kind of pun intended there, right? Spirit, invisible, right? Wind, breath, invisible. And so Dr. Tuggy kind of just remarking on that aspect about the Holy Spirit. God is the one who's orchestrating all of history and theology and the actions of mankind, and he's the source, if we could use the Greek term arche. He's the fountainhead from which everything springs.